Welcome to another episode of Impumelelo Mentorship Podcast, where we share stories that inspire, guide, and empower the next generation of leaders. I made the promise to rise as I rise with others, and so this is why I bring these very important conversations to you. Today, I am honored to be joined by Dr. Nikita Morathi, a dynamic young professional who has built her career on excellence, resilience, and impact. Her journey goes beyond the title of doctor. She's a change maker who is redefining what it means to serve, lead, and empower through her work. In this conversation, we'll unpack her story, the challenges she's overcome, and the wisdom she's carrying forward to inspire others, navigating their own journeys of growth and purpose. Dr. Nikita Morathi.
Hello.
We're finally here.
Finally.
Long overdue. A very long overdue. We met over a sporadic event that was supposed to be in honor of me, but anyway, it just ended up being a party in honor of us. It was an honor of us because we just so happened to get along. And I thought there's just something in you that I feel like we must put on the screen. You know, Impumelelo Mentorship is about finding individuals like you who have a story to tell, who people can relate to. And I thought, why don't we bring you here? Tell us who you are. What's your story? What's your background? What are you about? And I know you're beyond the element of inside the mouth. So you've been encompassed of so much more. So tell us that.
Thank you, Nompi. Thank you for having me here. So, yes, I'm a dentist by profession. And what brought me here into this profession, dentistry, journey started when I was 12 years old. And unfortunately, I had a bit of an incident, a trampoline accident, where I lost my front tooth, So at that time, I found myself in and out of dental rooms from the time I was 12 right up until the time I was 18. And I thought to myself, where does my life take me from here?
Yeah.
How do I change and evolve what I have experienced in the last 6 to 8 years in terms of dental care or holistic care at that time? And when I was 18, I automatically knew that I want to become a dentist, and it's for no other reason, not because I couldn't get into med school, but that's usually the reason. If you can't become a real kid, you can become a dentist. So no, that was not quite my story.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to change the way people had a perception about dentistry as a whole. It's not just about treating teeth, but it's about treating people as a holistic being. And that's the level of treatment I never quite saw in these rooms when I was between the ages of 12 and 18, in and out of general dental beings, maxillofacials, then orthodontics, and just a little bit of a wishy-washy situation at that time. Now we've seen dentistry evolve in such a way that everything is quite integrated. We have interdisciplinary, how can I say, units that come together and actually treat patients.
What does that mean?
We have multifaceted, how can I say, dentistry is quite broad.
Yeah.
It's not just
Cosmetic,
care. So you have cosmetic dentistry, you have dentists who only do braces, which is orthodontics, so alignment of teeth.
So that's specialization.
That's a specialization.
Okay. Are you a specialist?
I am not a specialist. Is that how you go? Absolutely. I have a keen passion for orthodontics, and that's exactly where my career is headed, or hopefully heading in the next 3 to 4 years to come.
Yeah. And my friend, I can imagine like going through school with that daunting experience and that daunting feeling and no temporary solution at the time.
So at that time, I had no temporary solution. That's right. It was quite daunting for me as a teenager in high school without a front tooth, as you can imagine. There's high school plays, there's speech and drama, there is arts and culture, but just your day-to-day activities on the playground, interacting with friends. You meet boys at that time. Alive, you had crushes in school. And it was a very, how can I say, it was a daunting experience. And also my self-esteem took a knock in a big way.
Yeah.
And for me to come out of that at 18, because they waited for full development until I could get a permanent solution, which was an implant.
Okay.
It was a little bit, how can I say, it wasn't overwhelming, but it was more depressing.
Yeah. And when we think about our smiles, it's the best confidence that we can wear. 100%. And again, you find having, some young people coming from marginalized communities, and you've taken this, experience that you have had that wasn't the greatest, and you've turned it into your calling, to make it something that you can give to others. What does that mean for you? And sometimes I often think, if someone is coming from a marginalized community and they don't have access or there's no solution at the time, what is it that is available out there? I know there is government solutions, but what else is available, and what does that mean for you?
For me, I think there's always means to an end. I have to be honest. Whether it's a marginalized community or community that can afford, there are ways and means in which you can restore function and you can restore aesthetics by not paying a fortune for it. Dentistry, like I said, is multifaceted, and there's a lot of ways in which you can do it. There's temporary solutions which don't cost a lot, and those should be options that can, and like I said, should be explored in communities. And I'm glad we've actually come to a point in our career or in dentistry as a whole where we can explore those options for our patients. So whether you can afford or you can't afford, like I said, there's 9 ways to skin a cat. Absolutely. There's 9 different ways to do anything, in terms of how do we achieve that kind of function? How do we achieve that kind of aesthetics? Can we do it at a fraction of a price for the patient? What materials can we use that the patient can benefit from long term?
And that's quite a pivotal thing. And it also just brings me to the thought of, so now you had to go through the transition of university and then ComServe. Do ComServe?
Of course. It is my dental school and 1 year community service. So,
Okay, so it's 1 year community service. And where did you go?
Wits.
Okay, and then after Wits, where did you do your
a little area called Forsterus, Jowixa.
Yes.
And it was a community clinic.
Yeah.
So I spent my 1 year at Forsterus.
The challenges that you experienced as well?
It was, I wouldn't say challenging, but I was very excited. It was an exciting time for me because that's what I really thrived on, is how to give back to the community. How do I use the minimal resources that I have to have a major impact or a great impact on this community? At the end of the day, we all deserve a right to care. And we all, how can I say, should have access to basic care. So for me, it wasn't really an overwhelming or a daunting experience, but it was an exciting time to see how I could channel my knowledge that I've learned in the last 5 years. How do I now give back to the community, and how can I fix things without having to so-called break the bank? And in these rural communities, you don't really have access to that kind of resources where you think you have in the private sector. So it was I wouldn't say a daunting experience, but a major learning curve for me.
And those resources are very important. But now, touching on that impact, how do you, in your role now, make that a sustainable thing? Because sometimes we do things in the now, but what is it that we're going to put in place that's going to make it a longevity thing?
The thing with dentistry is that, like I said, technology advances over time, material advances over time. Every 6 months, there's something new on the block. And it's something that you have to do as a clinician to make sure that you're up to date with the new technologies and the new materials. And in terms of longevity and duration, there are plenty of options out there. Fine, we live in South Africa. We don't really manufacture a lot of our resources or dental materials. Most of it is shipped from, overseas countries or from outside of South Africa. And it does come at a price. But at the same time, there is ways where we can communalize and marginalize on those type of things to make things last longer and be more durable and sustainable in terms of restoring health and function.
So there's work to be done.
A lot of work, and that's where you gotta play your part. Well, we try, I think I just, a drop in the ocean, really. You've got to start somewhere. We are a huge community and huge dental-based community out there, and I think the change starts from you. So if you can do the smallest of things when you get to work on a Monday morning and you can change someone's life in an impactful, meaningful way, that's step number 1.
But I can imagine all of this is quite an intense journey. It's demanding. You make it sound easy. 5 years of studying, 1 year of ComServe.
No, trust me, God, it is what it is. I'm not going to sit and lie to you, but my undergrad years, 5 years, was very, very overwhelming. The workload was intense. There were times where I really questioned, like, is this my path, or did I just choose a path that was the most demanding? They were trying times in undergrad. There were days where I'd be home crying, like, oh my God, is this really what I've ended up with? But I then realized, you've got to go back to your core values, and you've got to be somewhat resilient to the fact that you chose this for a reason. There was a broader picture behind the reason you decided to go on this journey as a dentist. And that kind of grounded me, if that makes sense.
But what of the reliance on support? Like family, friends, boys? Could you even create a relationship then? What was the reliance? Because, when we talk about that word resilience, and oftentimes you, the person undergoing the journey, and everyone else around you has to experience you in different facets, right? It's emotions, it's the fatigue, it's the happiness, it's the the dictation of different personalities that they have to undergo with you. So what's that, resilience, that meaning of it?
So the resilience factor for me came from, um, I think it's a bit of a drive as well. And I had to learn to give myself grace between those times of, those hard times, whether it was overworked or the intense amount of studying that we had to do, or being physically present for that 5 years of your life and dedicating that to your career. Of course, I leaned on family support. That was a big foundation for me. My family was super supportive. I also had a lot of mentors in a good way that helped me through that journey. A lot of inspirational speakers I used to reach out to just to be like, full edit guidance and motivation. I don't know. I feel like resilience for me comes with a lot of introspection and a lot of groundwork that you've got to see for yourself. Because if you don't do that, you're never going to have the drive and the ambition to move forward. And for me, it was not just making it to the end, but making it to the end in a big way. Like, this is going to be my future, I had to really sit back and say, give yourself rest periods, give yourself time to breathe, make sure you do things on time, but also have enough dedication to my craft.
And that's because you could see the bigger pictures.
Absolutely.
And that's the hardship we're experiencing. I mean, the dropout rate in university. Oh my God.
I must say it was a thought that crossed my mind, I think, after third year, because I was not uncertain, but I was pushed into a point of pressure and a little bit of burnout at the time I finished my third year going into fourth year. And I thought to myself, am I really going to make this? But by some grace of God,
yeah. But I did. And this is the thing, right? When it comes to medicine, dentistry, I find that the courses are a little bit more expensive than our ordinary marketing courses, business administration. And some of the students are not necessarily just dropping out because of a mental breakdown. And some are dropping out because, there's those critical issues of finances that they can't foresee in order to just go further with their studies. So then it becomes a bit tricky. But, from your experience, is there a place where our youngsters can access the resources, can reach out to the relevant parties who can support them to try and complete this degree, or to pursue it further, or to rather go ahead with it and see how they pay for the finances after?
Nampi, I have to be honest, that is a very tough question, because what we're finding now, and, I'm 8 years into private practice. I've left, the undergrad space a while ago. But what I realize now is that there is a lot of scarce resources in terms of funding when it comes to tertiary education, from a government perspective as well. The infrastructure, I wouldn't say has collapsed as a whole, but it has become far more difficult for students to get bursaries, to get grants to study, whether it's medicine or arts or marketing, or anything, engineering, you name it. We are at a point in our space when it comes to education in South Africa where we're not having easy access to this, and it is becoming harder and harder. So I'm not sure, to be honest, we students reach out to, but there are alumni groups that universities are affiliated to. And there is probably a point of contact that they could make to get into those kind of channels and avenues to get bursaries, sponsorships, even if it's credits on subjects.
Absolutely. And I think even just this conversation, maybe we're bringing the right awareness to the right places. I think, look, so they, like you're saying, there is that minimal support that we are getting, but I think we can probe a little bit more from the private sector as well to contribute to the space. All right. And of course, you wear many hats. You're a professional, you're a leader, you're an advocate for many things. So I want you to just deep dive into that. What does your life look like besides the dentist world as an entrepreneur and everything else that you encompass of?
Impact for me comes in big ways.
Right.
And it goes beyond the dental chair for me. For me, it's almost like having patients walk out with confidence more than a healthier smile also, in terms of mentorship, it's good to have younger colleagues that would come in, because I have a lot of colleagues and kids that are like 18 and want to know what the career path's all about. They come in and they job shadow me, and happily so, I take them under my wing, and I'm like, this is what dentistry entails, So for me, it's being impactful in those ways where you can mentor younger colleagues in terms of development, whether it's skills development or educational development. And also, I think it's not to say that I wear so many hats, but I'd also like to be in a space in my life where I'm able to be a mentor to someone, do my job great, have a good patient base, be a good dentist, but not have to master everything at the same time, because that can be sometimes very difficult to juggle, But my thing to myself, and I think when people look at me, they're like, you want to do everything, you want to be everywhere. It's not that, but like, girl, it's really not about that. It's about I want to do something and I want to have a major impact, in someone else's life or my own life. It's not that I want the credibility for it, but I want to know if I can push my own boundaries to make sure that I can get there and do it well. Not just do it, but do it well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, Nikita, I look at you and I see a woman that I aspire to, right? And I think of the young women too. You're strong, you've got it together, you work very hard, you're super intelligent, you're beautiful.
But it looks like that on the, it already looks like that on the outside.
On the inside, we're burning. In a good way, in a good way. So this is, what I've always wanted to ask you. Like, what do you do to keep yourself together? And what is the piece of advice that you would share with your younger self?
So for me, that's a very hard question because I'm still learning. So balance is a big part of how I see myself and my life. I always tell everybody, I said, I had it together, guys. I always feel like I had it together from the time I was in matric, right, until I was in university till now. But it's not quite like that. Having balance comes in stages, and I feel like you always have to go back and try and refine what balances you. So I do try and have a lot of strong boundaries when it comes to things, because that's the only way I can balance my life and all these different things that I'm trying to do on the daily. So yeah, balance is important. Defining good and healthy boundaries, making time for your family, making time for friends, making time to party. Because at the end of the day, you're still human. You need those little elements to make sure that you are able to still be human and lively and give back to your friends and your family, spend time with them. I also have good time where I sit and do nothing. Rest period. I love that. Really important for me, where I sit on weekends and just don't want to go out, don't want to interact, don't want to do anything. And also exercise. I try in my week from Monday to Friday. A bit lazy on weekends. All I do is eat on weekends. But I try from a Monday to Friday to make time for gym, because that helps me keep physically fit, mentally strong, and obviously some good breath work and meditation.
Yeah, it's like a work-life integration all in one.
It's very difficult. And I think balance is not a static state. It's something that you have to condition yourself every day when you wake up in the morning. You've got to rebalance yourself. It's not an innate response. It's not a routine. It's something that you got to work on refining every single day.
Oh, what a great piece of advice. Oh my goodness. But now I have one question that maybe a lot of people are wondering. Does an apple a day?
I do not know. Maybe a doctor, but does an apple a day keep a dentist away?
Well, look, I've heard that when you eat an apple, you don't really, it helps you floss some way.
So the apple has a high fiber content. Okay. So apart from the nutritional value behind it, it has a high fiber content. So it's taking away all that. I wouldn't say completely taking away, but it helps reduce the plaque.
The plaque.
It's not a plague. It's the plaque. It's something.
Girl, English is second. Zulu is first. Oh my God, do you remember?
Do you know the Zulu word?
No.
I was going to try.
I know. I must ask my mom. It's just don't you. But I loved having you.
Thank you so much. I know it was long overdue.
Long overdue. And then just to wrap up, one word that you could give to your younger self. One word.
This is a hard one.
Yeah, because we always like resilience.
I don't think it's one word. I think it's a sentence, I always, and I'm not sure if it comes from my grandmom or my mom, because I've always seen these women as an aspiring woman, hardworking woman. And I think if there's one thing that I would like young women to know, is that take the opportunity that comes your way. Don't wait for the time where you feel you're ready, because that might never be. You want to fit into roles that you step into.
Yes.
Don't wait for the time where you say, oh, I've seized an opportunity because I was ready or I was not ready to do it, So for me, I think it's all about the opportunity, being ready, step into the role when it sees you fit. And yeah,
absolutely.
Go forth and conquer.
Go forth and conquer. And as the Gen Z would say, cluck it.
That's what they do. Is that a new thing? This is a thing. Let's paint it. Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's like this, but it's like cluck it. Cluck it. That's like bars or something. Like, that's the one word. Cluck it.
Lucky.